Hello, and welcome to Dark Whisper. Are you ready to turn down the lights and prepare for a chill? Tonight, we have a collection of terrifying short horror stories guaranteed to keep you up long after you've finished listening. Before we dive into the darkness, we'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Let us know in the comments below what city and country you're listening from. And if you love being scared, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our new weekly Tales of Terror. Now, without further ado, let's begin.
Good evening. My name is Jose. I worked as a cargo truck driver for more than 10 years. Throughout my job, several things happened to me that some might consider paranormal, because driving kilometers and kilometers of road at night lends itself to all those kinds of things. This is one of the stories that marked me the most. I was leaving the city of Tijuana and planned to travel the entire border until reaching my Nepas. I left around 8 p.m. I wasn't tired because I had just taken a long nap at the truck stop, so I was ready to drive all night. Everything was normal. The road was pretty empty that night, almost no traffic, which I liked. It was already past midnight when out of nowhere I saw how a white van came from the mountain and got behind me. I didn't think much of it, assuming someone had parked there to rest a bit. But it didn't pass me. I had to drive slowly for obvious reasons. There was always room for a car behind me. I signaled with my lights so it could pass, and I moved to the side. I did the same with this van, but it stayed behind me. It didn't want to pass. I figured maybe the driver was scared because it was late at night, maybe inexperienced with highway driving. So I slowed down even more and signaled again. But the van still didn't pass. It also slowed down to stay right behind me. At this point, I was annoyed, not knowing what that person was playing at. I decided to ignore it and keep driving. 2 hours passed, and the van was still behind me. I decided to pull into a gas station to use the restroom and buy something to eat, but also so the van would continue its way and stop following me. But when I turned toward the gas station, the van did too. Only, it didn't go all the way to the parking area. It stayed at the edge of the road with the lights on. I went into the bathroom and the shop, but when I came out, the van was still there, waiting for me. I got really irritated and walked toward it to ask the driver what his problem was, if he was following me or if it was some stupid joke. I knocked on the window, but the windows were completely dark. You couldn't see inside. I knocked harder, telling him not to be a coward, to show his face, but he never rolled the window down. I yelled that if he kept following me, I'd report him to my trucker friends so they'd deal with him. And just then, the van suddenly started up and almost ran me over. I was still angry, but relieved it finally left. I got back in my truck, stayed parked for about 30 minutes, smoked a cigarette, and continued my trip. Everything was normal again. It was around 3 a.m. when suddenly the same white van appeared behind me again. I thought it had to be a joke now. It was personal, following me for more than 3 hours. Clearly, it wanted something. I planned to reach the next truck stop about an hour and a half away and asked the other truckers to help me confront the driver. So I kept driving patiently with the van stuck to my rear. Then it started to move to the side. I thought it was finally going to pass, so I slowed down, but the van did too. Its window was aligned with mine. I knew the driver was watching me. I honked for it to move away because it was dangerous, but then the van began drifting toward my trailer. I kept honking, yelling what the hell it was doing. Then I felt it hit my trailer. I lost control of the wheel, veered off the road, broke through a fence, and ended up in the middle of the mountain. Nothing happened to me, but the engine died. And when I tried to start it, it wouldn't. The radio didn't work either. My phone had no signal. I won't lie, I was scared. I was stranded in the middle of nowhere at 3 a.m. with no communication. As if that weren't enough, I saw lights approaching. My heart stopped when I saw it was the same white van. It parked behind me, turned off the engine and lights. I locked the window and grabbed the knife I always carried. The only thing I could think was maybe it was a criminal group trying to kidnap me. 5 minutes passed, no one got out. I decided to get out and try to speak with the driver so he'd leave me alone. I walked toward the van with my flashlight. Everything was pitch black. We were far from the road, surrounded by wilderness. I knocked twice and asked, "Hello, can we talk? Please roll down your window." No response. I leaned against the glass to see inside. There was absolutely nothing inside. I checked the back, nothing, just trash. The van looked abandoned for a long time. I opened the door and confirmed it was completely empty. I cannot explain the horror I felt. Who was driving it all that time? I ran back to my truck, but before I climbed in, I saw a figure standing a few meters in front of my truck, its shadow outlined by my lights. I said, "Hello," but it didn't answer. It only motioned with his hand for me to follow. I hesitated, but followed, thinking maybe he needed help. He walked fast, barely visible in the distance. The place smelled terrible, like dead animals. When he stopped, staring at a specific spot on the ground, I ran to catch up. But when I reached the spot, the man was gone. I searched with my flashlight, calling out for him. Nothing. Then I looked at the ground where he had been staring. There were 3 lifeless bodies. I couldn't even tell if they were men or women. I panicked and ran back to my truck. The van was gone, vanished. I started the truck, and miraculously, it turned on immediately. I left and called the police. I couldn't stop crying. I arrived at a truck stop where 2 coworkers were. They ran to help me. I didn't even know how to begin explaining what had happened. Later, detectives arrived. They asked how I found the bodies. I told them everything, risking them thinking I was lying. One detective showed me a photo of the van and asked, "Is this one the one?" I said, "Yes." They exchanged looks. Then they told me that van belonged to the 3 young people who were found dead in that mountain. They were journalism students who had gone missing weeks earlier on their way to Ciudad Juárez to work on a report about missing women. Their families had been searching desperately. The detective said they needed to clear me of involvement with criminal groups. I burst into tears, telling them everything was true. They told me to stay calm and call if I remembered anything. I was deeply affected. I've always wondered why those souls chose me to find them, to end their family search. It was the hardest experience of my truck driving career.
My name is Gerardo. For a long time I worked as a transport driver for several companies. I'm retired now since I'm already 70 years old, but during my truck driving years, many paranormal things happened to me. This one happened about 20 years ago. I was transporting construction material from Nuevo León to the state of Mexico. I had already been driving for 10 hours. Night had fallen, but that was something I actually liked. Traveling at night meant the roads were emptier. I enjoyed that feeling of tranquility and solitude. I was listening to music like I normally did, when suddenly I saw a man far ahead at the side of the road sticking out his thumb for a ride. I immediately pulled over. Back then it was very common to see people asking for a ride, and I always agreed. I liked helping people. So this time was no exception. He looked like a man around 60. His clothes were dirty and worn. I asked, "Where are you headed, friend?" He said he needed help. His truck had broken down about a kilometer ahead, but no one had passed by to assist him. I told him to hop in, that I'd help him with my tools. He sat in the passenger seat. He was very quiet. I asked what company he worked for, but he didn't answer. Then I asked if he was okay, because his clothes were torn and dirty, but he still didn't say a word. We passed the kilometer he had mentioned and supposedly should have already seen his truck, but nothing. I asked if it was farther ahead, and he simply pointed forward with his finger for me to keep driving. So I did. But the more time passed, the more nervous I became. There was still no truck. Then I realized we had returned to the exact same place where I had picked him up, the kilometer marker 62. I was shocked. It was impossible that we were back there if I had only driven straight ahead. There was no way to return without turning around, and I hadn't. I didn't know what was happening. The man still hadn't spoken a single word since getting in, so I decided to pull over and ask him to get out because something felt wrong. The man got out quietly, without thanking me or even looking at me. He walked toward the mountain and disappeared among the bushes. I didn't want to just leave him there, but he was gone. I couldn't see him anymore. I didn't know what to do. Something felt off. At that moment, another truck passed by and pulled over in front of me. The driver got out and walked toward me. I stepped out to see what he wanted. He said, "Friend, you need to get out of here. You saw a man asking for a ride, didn't you?" I asked how he knew. He said he drove that road almost daily and that the man I had picked up was a ghost who had died in an accident right where my truck was parked. He said the man had been dead for years, and for a long time he had been hitchhiking to truckers. Those who stopped to pick him up simply disappeared. He said a friend of his had vanished a year ago after telling him on the radio that he was going to give a ride to a man who looked like he had been in an accident. After that radio call, they never heard from him again, neither from him nor his truck. Many other truckers told stories of the same man appearing there, asking for rides, and those few who stopped for him were taken to the limbo where he was trapped, which is why they were never seen again. I thanked the driver for stopping to warn me. He said it was no problem, that among colleagues we had to look out for each other. He told me this might not be the last time I saw that man hitchhiking. If I passed through there again, I might encounter him. Just ignore him and keep driving. After that, the man left, and so did I. But to this day, I've never understood why that lost soul let me go. Why he didn't take me with him like the others. It's something I'll always wonder.
Another story worth telling happened almost right before I retired. I was driving from Mexico City to Cuernavaca. This time, I was with a coworker. We were talking. It was already early morning, and I was getting sleepy, so we decided to stop so my coworker could take the wheel while I slept a bit in the cabin. When he took over the driving, I was just lying down in the back when he suddenly said, "Gerardo, look! What is that?" I opened the curtain to look out, and it was an animal walking on two legs, approaching our truck. We couldn't tell what it was yet because it was still far, but it looked strange, chilling even. My coworker asked if it was an animal or a person, or what the heck it was. I told him we needed to get out of there, that whatever it wasn't good. He tried to drive away, but we were stuck. It looked like it had rained and there was a lot of mud. He kept trying, but the truck didn't move. The creature got closer, and it began to take the shape of an animal, something like a bull, but standing on two legs. Then it stopped. It no longer advanced toward us, but it stood there, watching us. We didn't take our eyes off it. We thought it wanted to attack us. I told my friend to move aside so I could try to get the truck out, but my attempts were useless. One of us had to get out and check where to move the tires, but neither of us wanted to, because that thing was still there, staring at us. I decided I would get out, just to end this, but my coworker begged me not to. He said the creature was waiting for us to step out to attack us. I told him not to be superstitious, that I didn't believe in that stuff, but he asked if I didn't feel that heavy, oppressive energy since the thing appeared. Truthfully, I did feel it, and I was terrified in a way I had never felt before. The atmosphere was strange and suffocating. But I didn't want to encourage his theory about the demonic creature, so I said no, that I didn't feel anything and told him to help me figure out how to get the truck moving. He asked me again not to get out. He said his grandfather, who had been a trucker for decades, once told him that if he ever saw an animal walking on two legs in the middle of nowhere, he should run away, that it was the most evil thing imaginable, and to pray to drive it away. I told him I always carried a small image of God that my wife put on the dashboard for protection, and we could use it to pray. He grabbed it instantly and began praying out loud. He asked me to pray with him, and so we did. Suddenly, that thing let out a howl so loud it sounded like it was right next to us. I started sweating, and my legs trembled. I had never felt so much fear. We kept praying the Lord's Prayer over and over until the creature began to step back, still staring at us, but retreating. Its horrifying howls faded until it disappeared. My coworker said, "Now!" and jumped out to guide me how to move the truck. I followed his directions, freed the wheels, and we took off as fast as we could. In all my years as a truck driver, that was the most terrifying, bone-chilling, horrifying experience I ever had.
My name is Manuel, and I've been transporting merchandise in my trailer for several years. It's a heavy, high-responsibility and dangerous job, especially since I often travel through many roads in Mexico, some more dangerous than others because of sharp curves or criminal activity. But this story surpasses both. That night, I had already been driving for many hours. I was on the road between Tamaulipas and San Luis Potosí, narrow mountain roads with dangerous curves. It was a difficult route. To make things worse, it started raining heavily. I had little experience back then, so I got nervous. The curves were hard on their own, and worse at night in the rain. I had been driving for so long that sleep started to overpower me. I knew I had to stop and rest because it was dangerous to continue, but the next truck stop was still very far. So I looked for a safe place to pull over and sleep in the cabin for an hour. I parked right in front of a hill between the brush. I shut off the truck and grabbed my umbrella and flashlight to get out and relieve myself. Afterward, I walked back to the truck, but as I approached, I noticed something. On the steps of the passenger side, there were muddy shoe prints, and the door was slightly open. The interior light was on. I had left both doors closed. Fear hit me. I thought someone had climbed in while I was outside. I slowly opened the passenger door and pointed my flashlight inside. "Who's in there? You need to get out," I said. There was no answer. I pulled the curtain to the cabin very slowly. Before opening it fully, I heard a man's voice crying, saying, "Help her! Please help her!" I yanked the curtain open, but there was no one there. How was it possible if the voice had come from inside? I started to tremble. Then I noticed something I hadn't seen. On the bed, in the corner, there was a very old, dirty baby car seat, covered in grass and mud, torn in places. I was shocked. I had no idea how he got there. I grabbed it and threw it out of my truck immediately. I closed the door and started the truck. I no longer wanted to sleep. I just wanted to get out of there. I was nervous and exhausted. I hadn't slept in almost 20 hours. As I tried to drive out of the brush, I hit something. I backed up a little and got out to see what it was and check if the truck was damaged. When I walked forward, I saw 3 large cement crosses. I had broken 2 of them. I approached and saw a small stone plaque that read, "Rest in peace, Peña Almanza." There was a framed photo of a man, a woman, and a baby, maybe 1 year old. It looked like they had an accident there and lost your lives. Everything made sense. I was certain the footprints and the voice belonged to that man. his soul begging me to save his baby. I broke down crying. My wife was pregnant at the time, and I would soon be a father. I couldn't imagine the indescribable pain of a man who, even in death, tried to protect his daughter. It was a heartbreaking story, one that stays with you for life. Thank you for reading this video. I invite you to subscribe for more terrifying content. Like the video and share it with your friends. There's much more content coming. Help me spread the fear.